What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we did have that Xbox Developer Direct. They gave us our first real look at Forza Horizon 6, as well as updates for Fable and Beast of Reincarnation from Game Freak. And there was even a secret hidden game that they showed that certainly got some reactions online, but we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the Circana sales numbers for the month of December in the US. That gives us our first real look as to how the Switch 2 did for its first holiday season. And we'll also be going over Super Mario Bros. Wonder as we get pricing and release date for the big Switch 2 update. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with, well, Ubisoft again. After yesterday, where we had all that information that was breaking around cancellations, delays, and them restructuring and figuring out their vision, that didn't go over well online. And as we figured, it didn't go over well with stockholders either. As you can see, this is over on Reuters, where they say shares of the Far Cry maker fell as much as 35% and were on track for their biggest one-day drop since the company's 1996 listing. Now, just for clarity here, they were already down pretty bad in terms of their stock value from their all-time high. I think that was 7 or 8 years ago. But they're already down like 90%, now they're 95% down. And if you look at their market cap, their valuation for the company, it's under $1 billion. And that's crazy because they definitely have intellectual properties that are worth much more than that. But I guess it's just a lot of confidence been lost, clearly, not only by gamers, but also by investors. So here they are now with, just an incredible situation when it comes to their stock. And I'm still trying to figure out how they recover from this. I mean, they got the infusion of capital from Tencent, but I have to wonder even if Tencent's looking at this like, whoa, okay, this ship is sinking fast. So we'll have to find out what Ubisoft's plans are here soon, because all we've heard from them now are cancellations and delays. Here's hoping they do have Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced ready to go for this holiday, and if it slips into next year, it's going to get rough for them. Also, we had just talked about the idea of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the trilogy that's ongoing, with Rebirth, and then maybe the third game going to the Switch 2 and Xbox. Well, now we have Naoki Hamaguchi, the director on the series, talking about this just openly. This is over on Nintendo's website, where he was asked about the idea of some of the upcoming titles on the Switch 2, saying there's not a huge amount of information I can share in terms of future games, but I can reassure players that we're working on the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second game in the series, and the third game too. They're being worked on for the Switch 2 alongside the other platforms right now. We can assume then Xbox, of course. One thing to reassure the fans who want to play these games on Switch 2, I've got a personal policy where I don't want to make any versions of any game different or offer a different gameplay experience just because they're on different hardware. So we basically have confirmation now that, yeah, sure, Rebirth is coming over. We already figured that, but then, of course, the third game that still kind of up in the air if it would be a timed exclusive again for PlayStation, doesn't sound like it. So that should be a big release for Square Enix, just being able to take advantage of multiple platforms at launch. Of course, that capping off this remake trilogy that, it seems like all the other platforms will be able to catch up on themselves, with Rebirth rumored to be coming out later this year even. Oh, and here's a random fun surprise. New Super Lucky's Tale. Do you remember that game? Well, now there's a PlayStation 5 version that's been announced. This we can see over on Gamatsu, saying it will release that PlayStation 5 version, that being P-Cube, of the 3D platformer on March 26th. It'll be available both physically and digitally. They have a few things here with key features. That includes 4K at 120 frames per second, which is big, I guess. Look, it's a platforming game. The art style, of course, leans into either lower resolution versions like what we've had on the first Switch, even up to higher clarity with the Xbox Series at this point. So it's either way, higher frame rate is only going to be a smoother experience for a 3D platformer, at least. Featuring a huge variety of gameplay, from expansive 3D hubs to story-based adventure levels, 2D side-scrolling challenges, rewarding mini-games. And you know what? I will say, I think new Super Lucky's Tale, because Super Lucky's Tale came out and it felt kind of generic and kind of got left behind a bit. I think it was overlooked. It's still a fun game. I mean, if you see it on sale, I think it's worth a pickup. Yeah, it's a pretty standard 3D platforming game, but it's still, I think, a fun experience if you get it at the right price. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that Xbox Developer Direct, and I'm going to go over everything that was announced there here today to kind of get you through it a bit quicker. But I will say, right now, looking at Microsoft's 2026 that they're setting up for Xbox, I think this is going to be a pretty big year for them, and I think it will make a lot of sense as we go along with their anniversary they're building up for this release schedule, because it's looking quite packed right now. But let's start from the top here for that Developer Direct, and they just went right into it with Forza Horizon 6. I am glad they decided to turn to this immediately, because while I know people were also tuning in curious about something like Fable, let's face it, Forza Horizon 6 is probably the game out of this entire show that is going to sell the most and attract the most overall attention with gamers. We know Forza Horizon 5 has done incredibly well. Tens of millions of people have played the game. So sure, put this front and center, ready to roll with Forza Horizon 6. And I do like what I'm seeing here. You start out as a tourist in Japan, and your first goal is to join the Horizon Festival. So in order to do that, you got to rise through the ranks, earning wristbands. That is a progression mechanic. I feel like Forza Horizon 2 might have been the last time we saw it. Definitely with the first game, but I think it stopped at Forza Horizon 2. So that's kind of cool to see that come back. This is the largest map for the Horizon franchise, and visually, it looks super impressive, and they spent a lot of time making sure it represents Japan correctly. And I mean, they showed a lot here when it comes to like the scenic area, like out in like the fields, or then in urban areas. And then at nighttime, it looked awesome with all the signage kind of rolling through Tokyo. Now the seasons do change, so that was something else they at least showed off with snow and it being kind of in like the fall. So pretty cool there. You do collect cars, houses, landmarks, and more. You have a whole book that you keep track of everything. And there's more than 550 cars at launch. That's the most they've done to launch a Forza Horizon game. And naturally, they will add more through DLC and stuff, I'm sure, as they go along. I did like the one little detail they pointed out where your tires, they'll lose grip. And visually speaking, it kind of loses the tread or the rubber on the outside of the tire. I just thought that was a neat little detail they showed off. They do have customizable garages, and you can find them at every player house. There's this big estate, which it's this mountain valley that you get, I guess, early on in the game, and then you can build it out and people can come visit it. I'm curious if that has any effects maybe on your player or anything. And it has all the accessibility features that'll be carried forward from previous games. They do have open world car meets, so the online multiplayer looks fairly seamless here. No load screens. You and a bunch of friends can drive around, then jump into sprints or circuits, anything like that pretty easily. And it is coming out May 19th, Xbox and PC. PlayStation 5 will be launching later this year, and it sounds like they're going to have it out in time for the holiday season. At the end, it seems like, I guess they have a giant Gundam mech behind the car that was sitting there. So sounds like they're gonna have some crazy, wacky, off the wall collaborations. That should be a lot of fun. Okay, next up we had Beast of Reincarnation. This is Game Freak, and they kept mentioning Pokemon. I think I counted 5 or 6 times where they said Pokemon. So really want you to know they worked on Pokemon. One person, one dog RPG is how it was described. This is Emma and Ku. It's in 4026 Japan, so it is post-apocalyptic world setting. Emma can seal the blight around the world into her body, and the blight is this parasitic plant that's overgrown in the world. The main character can manipulate her hair, and they compared it similar to vines. And it's very plant themed, the whole thing, right? So enemies are creatures that have fused with these plants, and you can defeat different powerful bosses and you become stronger. The idea being to defeat the Beast of Reincarnation. You also have these Golems faction, which is kind of mechanical enemies that you fight. And the question that's gonna come up, is this a Souls game? And no, I don't believe so, because they showed some of the combat and you can freeze time and you can give commands to Ku and just seem more like a standard action-based game. There are large skill trees for both of them though, and this is out summer for Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 5. Then we had the surprise game, that's Kiln. This is from Double Fine, and it is a party brawler where you start out as a spirit that creates a pot for its body, and then you use your new pot to transport liquid across the field to douse the enemy Kiln, and you use that the pottery wheel in the beginning to create any shape you want, and it auto detects what shape you're trying to make, just kind of like almost snap it into position so it looks right. I guess it's it's a very different game. I will at least give Double Fine this. They are creative almost to a fault for me anyway, because I don't think this is a game that's necessarily up my alley, so I probably won't be playing it much, but the maps at least do accommodate different pot shapes and sizes with things like shortcuts or secret passages. So they did at least think a bit about how the maps are laid out to accommodate different play styles and the ways people may make massive pots or try to make tiny little ones that can run around really fast but carry less water. And the experience and currency you get will be used to craft different pots or buy art supplies. Spring 2026, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. They're looking to a closed beta. At least they have it planned now, so we'll see more about that in the future. Then we moved out into the closeout, which was indeed Fable. So I want to point this out. We have Forza Horizon 6 from Playground Games opening, and then Fable from Playground Games closing. And it's actually really impressive to see Playground Games have what is an incredible racing, open world, sim, arcade kind of game like that with Forza Horizon 6, and then move to a very different game with Fable. The open world action RPG that is, yes, crafted or modeled around a storied IP at this point in franchise in Fable. So just want to point that out. Hey, Playground Games, they're onto something right now. Now, you do begin the game as a child, and you have heroic powers that'll first emerge in a moment of danger, as they describe. And then people in your village are turned to stone, so, of course, you got to set off onto an adventure. And then you walk into a seamless open-world Albion, and it looks super impressive. Like, visually speaking, this looks great. Now, there's still questions around frame rate. Is it going to be a 30 FPS game? Will there be at least toggles to have the option to turn on 60 FPS and maybe lower the resolution or detail settings in the world? Hard to say right now, but you do create your own character. So it right at the beginning, you won't be using any preset. You're ready to go with your own character appearance, skills, abilities, weapons. You have powerful spells, so you can craft your adventure however you want with your character. And what I really like about this, they showed, of course, combat. That's naturally going to be something you expect, but to have a lot of other things that are more social in nature away from that seems to affect the world around you, like buying houses, getting a job, romance, getting married, having kids. But then to go a bit further, you build your reputation, so villagers will either love or hate you, and you can buy shops, you can buy houses that you can become, of course, a landlord with that. Then you can kick people out, you can rent out rooms to them, and they'll remember all this stuff as it's happening. So I have to see how all this works out, because some of the things they said were super ambitious, like each individual NPC has its own daily schedule, and you can follow them around and see it in action. And so I guess if you hire one of them, you'll watch them go to your shop for hours on end and stand there and sell stuff and then go home, and I guess you pay them. So I don't know. It sounds like they're really going for it here. So I hope they end up nailing it. But there is no character morphing system. That's when I saw in an interview that IGN had after this event. So I don't know. It really depends on how you look at this, because with some of the previous Fable games, of course, if you're really evil, you'll grow horns. If you're good, you'll kind of have this glow about you. And I think you'll even get the halo ring above your head. So because then it will affect how you may play the game, because maybe you don't want horns. I can go either way with it, I guess. But I will say the major events they mention that will have choices that affect the rest of the game, like this big giant that if you kill will legitimately just be dead next to all these houses, and their property value will go down because there's a big giant dead guy next to them. Anyway, Xbox, PC, and PlayStation, yes, that's right, it's going to PS5, autumn 2026. And overall, very impressed with what Playground Games has turned in here with Forza Horizon 6 and Fable. Those were obviously the big standouts from this event. Beast of Reincarnation, it seems impressive for Game Freak, I will say that, but I feel like I just need to play that game at this point to see how it really turns out. And then Kiln, not really my kind of game, but man, right now, Playground Games, if they turn these two games in and they end up hitting really well, we'll say Fable ends up having a mostly positive reception, 85 plus on Metacritic. Forza Horizon 6 comes in with the 90 plus, ready to be the game of the year. Doesn't even get nominated, of course, at the end. But this might be a big year for Playground Games. Big year for Xbox, though, because they still have a lot more stuff they're ready to show for their big anniversary for Xbox, and this is kind of just the start. Next up, let's talk about the Circana sales numbers for the month of December, and then also looking back at the entire year of 2025. This we can see. This is over on Matt Piscatella's social media account, saying December 2025 US video game market highlights thread from Circana. Increases in consumer spending on subscription services, hardware and mobile content helped the US video game market reach $60.7 billion in 2025, achieving 1.4% growth when compared to a year ago. That's actually very, very good. Now, it does seem, as he mentions here, the total projected spending across video game hardware, content, and accessories grew 3% when compared to a year ago to $7.8 billion, and hardware subscription and PC content gains drove the increase. So yes, hardware with the Switch 2 and the PS5, those two seem to do pretty well. I mean, the Xbox is, it's expensive. I don't know what to tell you with the Xbox right now, but if we take a look here, we can see that we'll go with the top 10 games for December. All right, that includes Call of Duty Black Ops 7 at number 1, NBA 2K26 at 2, Battlefield 6, Madden NFL 26, EA Sports FC 26. We have some Nintendo titles here. Important to note that the physical copies are not counted. These would just be digital copies then. So Pokemon Legends ZA, then Metroid Prime 4 Beyond at number 7. I mean, I guess it's just physical copies. That seems kind of low for Metroid Prime 4. I would have liked to have seen that break into the top 5. Then we have Minecraft, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and then Ghost of Yote rounding out the top 10. Now, I do want to take a look, though, at the top games for 2025 overall, and you're seeing this right. Battlefield 6 was number 1. It is no longer a Call of Duty driven market, at least for 2025. Then we have NBA 2K26, Borderlands 4, Monster Hunter Wilds, Call of Duty Black Ops 7. That's number 5. Think about that. Monster Hunter, Borderlands, and NBA all outsold Black Ops 7 for the year. That's wild stuff. Then we have Madden NFL 26, EA Sports College Football 26, EA Sports FC 26, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered, and then Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to round out the top 10. Moving over to the hardware, the Nintendo Switch 2 led the hardware market in both unit and dollar sales during December in the 2025 year, helping offset year-on-year declines across other platforms. PlayStation 5 placed second across both measures and time periods. The Switch 2 finished its 7th month in the market with a life-to-date US install base of 4.4 million units, nearly double the installed base of the original Switch on a time-aligned basis. The Switch 2 remains the fastest-selling video game hardware platform in tracked history. Unit sales of the Switch 2 are 35% ahead of PlayStation 4's sales pace after 7 months in the market. Important to note there, he had to do a correction. Technically, the Game Boy Advance is the fastest-selling hardware platform overall after 7 months on the market. However, that would make the Switch 2, according to Matt, the fastest selling console in its first 7 months. And they mentioned launch line with the Switch 1. It's very important to remember the Switch 1 came out at the beginning of March. So 7 months from there, at the beginning of March, that would have been the beginning of October. So we're counting the Switch 1 against the Switch 2 when the Switch 2 had a holiday, like through December, the whole thing, and the Switch 1 had not. So if you look at the Switch 1's initial holiday period, especially through that December back in 2017, it actually sold more systems than the Switch 2 did recently, this past December. But because the launch alignment is a little strange, it doesn't necessarily line up. Still though, the Switch 2 is the fastest selling game console in the US in its first 7 months. I think the better comparison will be for the Switch 1 versus the Switch 2 when we get a full year of the Switch 2 and we can kind of line them up a bit better where they both have had at least one holiday period to see how things go. But I will say going forward, it's going to be less and less favorable for the Switch 2 versus the Switch 1 because we know with the Switch 1, it continued to ramp up. Then it got that big boom from COVID and everyone staying inside and spending money on entertainment. And the Switch 2 is just outright more expensive. So it's going to be more difficult for Nintendo to sell that many units. I don't think the Switch 2 is going to be in the conversation of, will this be the best selling system ever made? And will it end up at 160 plus million? I do think the Switch 1 in some way was lightning in a bottle for Nintendo, and the Switch 2, while I think it will still do very well in the long run, I don't think it's going to reach the Switch 1 sales number. Still, at least for now, it's cruising in the US as we're seeing, and certainly in Japan. Next up, though, will be let's see what they have for us in the first week of February, when Nintendo reports their fiscal quarter numbers that would cover this past holiday season. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Super Mario Bros. Wonder, as there is a Switch 2 version and DLC that is coming out. And they've already told us about this, but now they did go into detail, as well as giving us a release date and, yes, pricing for it, because this one's going to cost you a bit more. So let's take a look. This is the trailer that Nintendo released. And starting at the top, Bella Bell Park Attraction Central. This is the main hub unit here. Has different multiplayer modes. So there's a local multiplayer plaza where they have 17 attractions. 4 people can play on the same system, and they also have game share. So if you and a couple of friends, all of your Switch systems around, one person has the game, you can link up and still play just like that. Okay, so we have Game Room Plaza. That features the online play. So that's up to 12 players, and they have 6 attractions. So they have kind of split up the local multiplayer and the online multiplayer, and I would assume it's just based on the different game types and modes and stuff that they have set up that would accommodate either one. Then we have Toad Brigade Training Camp, and this is kind of like you quickly run through these different levels and with objectives to clear, and it's almost like this quick training course, and as you build up, you'll get different things, okay? Then they have Rosalina, who has the same abilities as Mario and friends, and then you have co-star Luma, who can assist with mouse controls, so you can have a friend or someone use Luma through the Switch 2 mouse setup and just hit different enemies on screen or collect things. They have an assist mode they're adding, so if you have a younger gamer maybe who's not as good at it, but they can run through it without taking damage, and they can't fall down pits, and they have fun doing that, there you go. Just go ahead and turn on assist mode. This is coming out March 26th, 2026, and if you already have the game, it will be an additional $19.99. All right, and I'm sure they'll package it all together, and it'll be $80 on the retail shelves there, ready for people to pick up. 3 new amiibos that'll also be available. Now, I mean, it's more multiplayer focused, clearly, so it almost, for me, falls in line or the realm of Mario Party-like kind of experiences. So it might be fun, because I of course, already have Mario Bros. Wonder, to pick this up and play with some of the kids, and we can kind of run through levels and stuff there and have fun with it. But I think right now, I see these different updates come out. I'm more excited when they're free updates, clearly, because it's like, oh, that's cool. It's sort of just there, and usually they'll shadow drop them like they did with Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. But with this, it's like, is that filling in for a game release? I don't know. I kind of just want more like new Switch 2 stuff. So that's why it's cool that they have some kind of update for people out there who are big fans of Mario Bros. Wonder. I'm just ready to see what's next. What's the next big thing for the Switch 2? And hopefully that means here in a few weeks we have a direct, so Nintendo can start setting up the rest of this year, and then maybe into 2027. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. And that is Game of the Year Madness Day 28, Donkey Kong Bonanza versus Dispatch. And yes, Donkey Kong Bonanza taking out Dispatch quite handily, by the way. And this is going to set up a pretty big Final Four. And I think we're going to save that for Sunday, so we can then go into Monday with the results. It's these are the big matchups, people. This is where we've seen these games blowing out other games, and now they're all about to go up against each other. And I will say, for the most part, seems like Game of the Year nominations for the Game Awards got it right, because 4 of these titles were in those nominations, so we'll see how this goes. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mad Monkey, who says, I'm curious about which other announced game was canceled. Hope it's not Rayman. Well, I believe from what I've been seeing, Rayman is safe. They did not cancel that. And it seems like there's word going around that a remake of Rayman Legends is also in the works. So I think you're going to see some Rayman coming up here in the future. Probably still a few years down the line, to be honest. But the games that did get canceled were new IPs, so it's kind of hard to really know how to feel about that, because it could have been a really bad concept that people would have just groaned at if they should. Here's another hero shooter. And people would go, well, you should have canceled that. All we know, though, are that these new IPs were canceled and that they're delaying some because there's a certain quality level that they want to hit. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly what went on there at Ubisoft, other than, yeah, they canceled Prince of Persia, which is very, very annoying. But hey, Beyond Good and Evil 2, still in development. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about the whole AI situation that's been running wild when it comes to video game prices with just software, hardware, the whole thing across the board. I'll leave that in the video right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.